In these perilous times, see from current events how biblical prophecy is coming to pass in front of our eyes. You're watching In the Last Days, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. With Martin and Natalie Blackham, thank you to our friends and partners who make this program possible. Now, here's Martin and Natalie.
Hi, welcome to the In the Last Days television program with myself, Martin Blackham. Natalie's behind the scenes today, but she says hello to you. We have a very special guest in the studio today, Yishai Fleisher. Thank you so much for coming across again and being our guest on this week's show. Yishai is the only English language radio show host in Israel on Galei Yisrael 106 FM. If you're in your car in Israel and you tune in, it's 106 FM, and you do a show. Is that every week?
Every week, and the show goes out, through all the modern ways, through iTunes and now SoundCloud, and you try to get it out there. God has brought in amazing tools in our time to reach people, and that has been very important for all kinds of folks who have been trying to get their message out. So, the revolution happens on Twitter. But at the same time, for Israel, the media blackout against the truth about Israel's story has been very strong. And now that media is being kind of liberated, people like myself are using that to our advantage to get out the message, and then let the people really decide, but at least give us a fair shake. The BBC, for example, here, appropriate. Is this the BBC? No, right? So the BBC called me one time and they asked me whether they could come to my house and spend a month with me. A month they wanted to spend kind of filming everything. I said, sure, but I want you to sign a contract. And the contract is that I'm asking you to adjudicate our issue as well, our perspective. Give us a right to air out the way we see it, that we're not against international law, that we are not occupiers, that we are the rightful people of this land, that we're not some kind of colonialist operation, that we're the ancestral people of this land. This is the cradle of our civilization. And they wouldn't do it. And they wouldn't do it. And you know what? The guy, the producer that was helping make that show happen was from Northern Ireland. And he said to me candidly, he said, I know exactly what you're talking about with the BBC. They never seem to air out our version of the events. And he was fired. He was taken off from that. I don't know if he was generally fired, but he was taken off the project because he kind of sided with my perspective, and they never signed that contract. And I told them, I'm not going to have you come into my house because you don't have a good track record with me. Why would I spend a month with you guys only to be raped on your channel and my truth trampled upon? So media has been very locked down.
It's the distortion, isn't it? They take what we think they'll look at it one way, but they distort it and
Let's look right now what's happening in the Middle East. We have a situation where in Syria, there's been at least officially 100,000 people murdered in gruesome ways, a few kilometers away from where we're sitting right now. We know that there are millions dispossessed, without a home, living in horrible refugee camps where women are afraid to go to the bathroom because of being somehow attacked. So we have a situation in which women in Saudi Arabia aren't given the right to drive. We have Christians persecuted all over this region, like the Copts in Egypt, who are just constantly, their churches are burnt, and they have no safety, no normalcy in their life. And you have one country, Israel, which allows all these minorities to live in peace. Yes, with a little bit added security. It's true, you will probably have to go through a checkpoint sometime. It's not the worst thing in the world. I go through a checkpoint. Yes, we look at your stuff. When you go to the airport, you don't go through a checkpoint. We all go through checkpoints. It's a security measure for a time where there are some with an ideology that may cause you to blow up. So yes, we have some security checks. But in terms of freedoms, here's the one country in this region that is not murdering its population. And yet it's portrayed exactly the opposite. And nobody cares about the 100,000 people, including millions of children who are dispossessed from their homes right now. Nobody cares about them. They only want to talk about Israel and forcing Israel to shrink. And that's the language we've heard. There's only one solution to the problems of Israel, and that is the two-state solution. Taking tiny Israel, which is smaller than the state of New Jersey in America, I guess like Wales or something, and taking that land and cutting it cutting it into two little pieces and taking away the ancestral part, the part where the Jewish people had all of their history, places that are famous like Jerusalem or Bethel or Hebron. You say the word Hebron to people, they look at you like it must be an Arab city. Arab city, this is the seed of King David's kingdom, of where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah are buried. This is the biblical story takes place in this land. They want to take that land and create a 23rd Arab country.
I think for the viewers, I'll just explain that a lot of people will know the term West Bank,
right,
but not maybe know what it is geographically. Right. But we're talking, I think I'm right, when we talk about the West Bank, we're talking about Samaria and Judea. And we're including in the BBC definition of, or the CNN or whoever, the media definition of the West Bank, we're looking at Jerusalem, Hebron, Shiloh. We're looking at all these biblical cities which are actually historically the Jewish homeland, and including Bethlehem was the city of David. And now you can't even go there.
That's right. That's right.
You can't even...
You touched the sore point here. You touched a painful point for me, Bethlehem. It's really, it seems there's a lot of paper, there's a lot of words, but I'll boil it down to make it that everybody will get on the same page. In 1948, Israel declared independence. Jordan, which was a country created by the British to give some favors to some of their Bedouin friends, not even from Jordan. That country, Jordan, which was armed by the British and led by British generals like Glubb, General Pasha Glubb, attacked Israel as one of the 6 armies that attacked Israel. And though Israel won the War of Independence, we lost control and the ability to take part in our ancestral homeland, including places like the Mount of Olives, where there were 180,000 Jewish graves dating back to 3,000 years. So we had lost, we were dispossessed.
And even the synagogues as well on the Mount of Olives.
The synagogues were in the Old City, in the Jewish quarter. They were systematically blown up as to get rid of any evidence of our connection. Jews that had been living for centuries in Hebron were evicted. And that happened in 1948. And for 19 years, this land was occupied by Jordan and not recognized by any countries in the world except for 2, England and Pakistan, also kind of England. And in 1967, we had a war here again. Israel was about to be attacked. We preempted that attack. And in that war, we were able to liberate those lands and return to those ancestral burial places, ancestral living lands, including Hebron, including the Old City of Jerusalem, including the Mount of Olives, including Bethel and Shiloh. And we began a process of repatriating those lands, not occupying and not colonializing, but repatriating and resettling. People say to me, Yishai, you're a settler. I say, well, I'm a resettler. I'm being resettled in land. That's true. They say it's occupation. I say, well, it's preoccupation. We've been preoccupied with this land for a long time, and finally we got a chance to get back to it. And those are cutesy terms, but they're very meaningful.
The thing about the occupation is it doesn't make any sense, because if you occupy, the occupation tends to suggest that you shouldn't be there. That's what, when people say the land is occupied.
That's what it tends to suggest.
Yeah. And so when our viewers, and maybe some of you will know this, but when you see the media reports and we hear the story of Israel and the occupation, the first thing you think is that they shouldn't be there.
Exactly.
But it's not an occupation. It's coming back to your ancestral homeland. The Jewish people are returning, after the miracle of and we talked about this on the last week's program about the miracle of the Aliyah. They come back, they live again in their homeland, so they're coming back to their land.
In gathering.
And that's why you've got this.
There's only one snag in this whole thing. There's only one tiny snag. Everything is right. So it's our land. We're fighting for it. Other people are saying that it's not your land. It's a classic fight. That's all good and dandy. And we Jewish people know how to be tough vis-a-vis haters and anti-Semitism. The only problem is, Martin, is that we have people in our own country, in our own government, who have adopted the other narrative. And that is when it starts to hurt. Because fighting a front against whoever, that's okay. But when your own brother has adopted, and sister has adopted a narrative that it's not our land, that we're in occupation, or that there's another narrative, which is maybe it's not an occupation, maybe it is our land, but let's give it up for peace, which is more pernicious because at least it's not a lie. It doesn't say it's not our land. It says it's our land, but we must give it up for peace. This is just a symptom of being bullied and being afraid of our Arab neighbors or the West, which is pushing for this. So in all these cases, we have weakened. And when that weakness is broadcast to the world, that we're willing, like our Prime Minister, who I have tremendous respect for and admiration for, but on this point, I must disagree very vehemently that it's a great mistake to weaken our security and also weaken our claim by somehow allowing others to say that they have been there before us, that they have more rights than us, to erase our history. The Prime Minister and there are sects in this country that are not the majority, although they claim to be, that say that we have to give up our land, we have to shrink our country. And I am on the side of, and I'm an activist for, and I live my life in such a way as to stop that, what they call the two-state solution, the shrinking of Israel.
So, for the viewers at home, what does the two-state solution mean?
It means cut up the land and give a huge chunk of it to Arabs who have really come there in the last 150 years.
I mean, like Arafat, for example, was Egyptian. He wasn't from this area.
Correct.
And yet he's leading this so-called country which never existed, of Palestine, without any currency, without any capital, without anything. I remember a story I heard. I was reading a book, and it was of a Christian minister who lived in Ramallah, and he remembered it as an Arab Christian village, and it wasn't a capital of anywhere. It was on the edge, a small village on the edge of Jerusalem, and yet we have. And I wondered, and I want to talk about this for a minute. I wondered if that's due to anti-Semitism, that this story of the Palestinians, Palestine, two-state solution, is that anti-Semitism's raw edge?
I like the way you said that. I like the way you said that. Many people will have a hard time equating between anti-Semitism and anti-Israelism. But if we make the simple equation on the other side, that Israel today is the Jewish state and represents the Jewish people, then acting in a way that's anti-Israel is, in effect, being anti-Jewish. And anti-Semitism, it's a topic unto itself. What is it? Is it a jealousy? Is it a hate of God? Is it also simply being fed propaganda against the Jewish people? It's a combination of those things. Today, there's no doubt about it that the Arab world, the Palestinians, quote unquote, are some of the luckiest in the Arab world. Could their lives be even better? Absolutely, absolutely. Could we help make it better? Absolutely. But Israel, because it lives in a defensive posture, is sometimes doesn't have that leisure. But the idea that our land should somehow be divided is the wrong solution. And it's not going to work, and that's why it hasn't worked for 40 years. What's going to work? A bigger Israel that has sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, these parts, what they call the West Bank, with Arabs living with rights, minorities living with the great freedoms that Israel grants, accepting that it's okay for even a Muslim to live in a Jewish state. That's a big ideological leap. They have to accept that. And yet, on the other hand, on the other side of that, while Arabs have to accept that, we have to accept that if they don't accept it, we have to show them a way out. Meaning to say, if you're an Arab and you want to keep your Arab, Palestinian, Muslim identity and live in Israel, we've got a place for you. You want to be a doctor? You want to be a lawyer? You want to sit on the Supreme Court? You want all representation, all those rights? There's a place here for you. But if you don't accept the state of Israel as the Jewish state, you don't accept its legitimacy, you want to fight against it, you want to be seditious against it, then you don't have a place here. If you feel that you need Arab self-determination, you have 22 other Arab countries to choose from, and they need your help very much to make them better countries. But if you want to live a decent life in this country, you're welcome to it. But if you will act seditiously, we must, because we are the post-Holocaust era. We cannot allow you to arm yourself against us. We cannot allow our children to be exposed to that. And I also disagree with my Prime Minister, who allows people like Hezbollah in southern Lebanon to arm themselves with 50,000 rockets against us. I believe that nobody should be allowed to pull out a pistol, cock it, and aim it at our heads. Nobody should be allowed to do that. We have a Talmudic saying, which is, if an evil person arises to kill you, you get up earlier in the morning and get them first. That is the zero tolerance that Jewish people must have for another Holocaust. And it should not be confused. Today's jihad is not about Arab rights or Arab self-determination or about Palestine. It is neo-Nazism. That is the word, not to be confused. It is a deep hate against Jews. It is indoctrination to kill Jewish people. And it's not about peace. If it was about peace, we would have had peace a long time ago.
And do you think that's something that's connected with the anti-Semitism, the rise of jihad and...
You know, people favor the strong. You know that? And jihad today is a very strong movement. And if people are watching this in England, they know what I'm talking about. And don't be surprised if your neighbor, who's a little bit weak-willed, succumbs to believing that the jihad has justice to it. Because people respect strength all around the world. And that's why Israel has got to be strong. And we were most liked when we were strong after 1967. I wanted to stop for a second and just tell you that while Israel is under great threat, and there is a global jihadist and anti-Semitic movement, and the West is in danger, and all this kind of stuff, and Christians are in danger, and all that, at the same time, I want to tell you that there are such wonderful people out there in the world. For example, the Prime Minister of Canada seems to be a great friend of Israel. In England, I'm in touch with Twitter groups who just live a life not like their neighbors. They love Israel with all of their hearts. I just got in touch with a group called Irish for Israel. And these guys have a beautiful video. They flew the flag of Israel over a pub in Dublin on Israel Independence Day. I wish I was there, you know. I would have had a pint with them. One day I will have a pint of Guinness in Dublin, in a Dublin bar with the flag of Israel.
Well, maybe if you're one of those from Ireland who are watching the program, maybe you can contact us. That would be great.
Yeah, they're called irishforisrael.ie. .ie? I think .ie. Whatever it is, Ireland. And they're great folks. And there are...
So that's a very interesting point. There are groups across the world, yes. And many of you at home will be like this. There's groups of people meeting who love Israel, who listen to your programs, who listen to Arad Sheva, who are watching, you know, looking at Jerusalem Post, looking at what's happening
and
here.
in the last days, Martin.
That's right.
They're watching they're trying to get whatever they can. They're trying to get whatever they can. And you know what else they're doing? I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say it. It's the fundamentals here. They read the Bible. You know, one thing I tell Jews sometimes, I tell them, you're so smart. You're a little too smart. I tell them, you know, the average Gentile reads the Bible and says, well, heck. You know, I go right into my Texan accent. You know, well, heck. You know, God's given you your homeland. Why don't you go back to your homeland and build it? You know, it's so quite obvious, really, that big things are happening, and that the Jewish people are living this incredible opportunity, this incredible romantic time.
You speak to groups in how's the response there? Talking about that, because you don't just speak to Jewish groups and synagogues, but you also go and speak to other groups.
Well, I have learned that you have to know how to speak with different groups in different ways, and you have to know their lingo. With Christians, you have to know what the language that makes sense to them. And when Christiana Manpour was at my house, you know, I didn't talk about the Bible, although she wanted me to. She wanted to paint me in a corner that I'm a religious fanatic. With religious Muslims, you've got to know how to speak about the Quran and about the rights of the Jewish people vis-a-vis the Quran. With Jewish groups, you've got to know which ones. For example, I was once in Toronto, Canada, and that evening I was speaking, going to be speaking, in the morning I was speaking in a synagogue, at evening for a church group. So I said to them, okay, fellas and ladies and gentlemen here, this morning in the synagogue I'm going to speak politics, because tonight when I go to the church I'm going to be speaking Bible. So, you know, they laughed about that, and there was a truth to it. You know, you got to know how to speak it. I am comfortable, and I'm not talking about myself, but it's important to know that Israel can assert itself in law, in international law, in history, in Bible, in the different, in all the various justifications for being a strong nation, we have the ability to speak that way. But you have to know how to speak it. And I want to encourage people out there to not be afraid. It's not only Jews that have to be afraid. It's anybody who feels that they have to succumb and shut their mouths. You know, I want people around the world to show their solidarity with Israel by buying Israeli products, not because we need the money, but because when you eat of the Israeli products, it's a statement for you, and it's also tasting the Holy Land, which everybody in the ancient world certainly knew how important it was. You know, if you have more courage, fly the flag of Israel, like those good folks in Dublin. Do something in your life and show it to your children. Show your children that this is something real. And the number one thing to do is to come. There's nothing greater. And everybody can make it part of their life. You know, in the old days, you know, to come to the Holy Land, Terra Sancta, it was a lifelong dream for everybody. Today, just get on that plane and come in for a week and be part of it. You will be blessed. Certainly, you will bless Israel, and you will be blessed in return. But be fearless in your life. We got, you know, on the face of it, we have one life to live, and you have to really plug into this amazing story. If you hear the call, if you hear the voice.
And one of the things is that for our viewers is a lot of them are involved in advocacy of some description, and we can encourage you to contact in the UK your Member of Parliament to be involved in Israel advocacy. And if they want to contact you, I know that we've got Yishai Fleisher on the program today. If they want to contact you or to find out more about what you're doing, they can. What's the website?
The website is Yishai Fleisher, no C, okay, Yishai Fleisher. But you know, I'm easy to find. I'm all over the web, and you can listen to shows, you could watch videos, you could get educated. I recommend the radio show. What it does is it gives you a media diet, an alternative media diet. You need to have that the prism of how you understand what's happening in the news, seen through a filter of somebody who's really underground, and help you really understand how to answer questions. And we do that week in, week out, really giving people a full perspective. It's not, you know, and I want to urge all of your viewers, Israel's a sophisticated story. The Bible could have been a leaflet, but it's not. It's a big fat book. It's got a lot of information, a lot of turns, twists and turns, this way and that way. God wanted it that way. There's depth there. And I don't agree with certain relationships that come through the Christian world that seem kind of shallow. It doesn't need to be shallow. You need to get in there. Certainly learn the Bible, but learn the news today. Get into the story. Get into the nitty-gritty of it, and you're going to be blessed through having deeper wells, deeper well springs. Your children will see it as well. I'm a big believer, by the way, that the children have to see it. The next generation is where the haters of Israel are really working on. They're working on the children. They're working on your children on campus, at university. They're working on them through the media, and you have to show them in your life that where you stand. Children look to their parents to be the biggest role models in their life. Show them that you believe in Israel. And I've seen the children of lovers of Israel take that to the next generation. And when you have a child who's courageous on campus, that makes other kids say, hey, you know what, I also have those feelings, but I've been afraid. I've been afraid. Fear, Martin, is the greatest enemy today. And it's spread like a net everywhere. And you have to see it, that that net is on you. And you have to start shaking that dust off and shaking those bonds off and proclaim that truth. And you'll be blessed. So if I could do some small part in that on YishaiFleisher.com, then I'm a lucky man.
I want to thank you on behalf of a lot of viewers, a lot of our viewers, who a lot of you will be in the UK. I want to thank you because your work, particularly with the Rad Sheva and in, Israel National Radio, was such an important life link for them. To get news out of Israel, to get in English, to get up-to-date news, which wasn't biased, which was telling the truth.
And even if it's a little biased, that's okay. But at least you can compare it now. At least you see the other side. I don't mind people check me. I always tell groups, check me. Don't believe anything I say. Check it on Wikipedia. Check it wherever you want. I'm not trying to preach to you the truth. I'm giving you my narrative, my perspective. But at least now you've got an opportunity to judge it. And we have to get out of this idea that Israel's alone. Israel's not alone. We got a lot of friends out there. We got a lot of friends out there, and they want to bless Israel because they want to be blessed. They want to be part of this story. So you know, we have to kind of get out of this. We got the biggest friend in the world in general, which is the boss. He's the biggest friend, you know, to the Jewish people and to those who love the Jewish people. So my show is a small link in that. Maybe we'll grow it. Your show is very important, and I'm more and more realizing that we have this cataract that wants to a fog. Let's call it a fog that wants to descend upon us, like it did before World War II, and we have to shake that off, and we have to say no, we won't let it happen again. And the prophet Zechariah talks about how at the end of times, you know, Jews will be going to the airport. Gentiles will grab hold of their four-cornered garments and say, hey, I want to go with you to Jerusalem. I want to learn about the God of Israel. And that could be seen in a broader way. That's also true in medical advancements. That's true in clean water advancements. It's true in medicine. It's true in technology. All those things are vessels for godliness. And our Talmud tells us that at the end of times, in the end of days, knowledge will flow into this world. And I'll finish off with this, that as we're being ingathered, one could say the Jewish people are going to become more isolationist, more xenophobic, and yet at the very moment that the Jewish people are being ingathered, so too the media revolution is able to broadcast from Zion, because from Zion shall flow out and be broadcast Torah. So that's what you're doing, Martin. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming across today. It's been great to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget you can email us at info@inthelastdays.com. We love to receive your emails. And remember to visit the website www.inthelastdays.com. And remember, we're living in the last days.
You've been watching In the Last Days, a TV program with Martin and Natalie Blackham, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. If you would like to financially support the program or find out about conferences, meetings, or ministry products, then please contact us with the details on your screen. Visit our easy-to-use website at www.inthelastdays.com and register for our free e-newsletter. Get the latest news from Israel, product information, online video teaching, or watch today's TV program at a time that's convenient to you. Thank you again, friends and partners, for making this program possible.
See you same time, same station for the next program from In the Last Days.